Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel and the World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series. September 29th, 1984 is this particular program, and some good stuff here, some kind of middle ground stuff, but we kind of see some action here that is intermittent, and lots of first round segments this week. I don't even know that they do a review segment. Doesn't seem like they have time for it. No, they do not. So we open with Jake Roberts against Jules Strongbow. Interesting combination there. You'd think that match wouldn't work, but somehow it does. And obviously Jake still being highly featured here, heavily featured here, as is to be expected. Everywhere Jake goes, he seems to get a feature spot, and well worth it. But anyway, we move into the body of the match. The match itself is reasonably very basic, as Jake Roberts doesn't... So we move kind of forward into the Roberts and Strongbow match. It's weird, they do a promo with Jake Roberts after his match with Jules Strongbow, and that promo is almost as if the Strongbow match had not taken place. He talks about Strongbow being a guy who is getting punished for him taking Chris Adams lightly, and it just seems out of sequence. Hard chops by Strongbow. Strongbow not able to rock Jake Roberts too much, though. Roberts does get knocked off his feet a few times, but he grabs an arm bar, holds on pretty tight, and rolls through. Takes some bumps from some chops. Even something as simple as Jake will check his mouth after getting hit with a chop. Kind of like, hey, I just got hit in the jaw. Might as well check that all my teeth are still there. But it's simple stuff like that sets Jake apart as a future Hall of Famer. I know he has his personal demons, but Jake's probably one of my top 5 favorites of all time. Certainly top 5 of the 80s for sure. I was not a fan of his 90s return, and obviously his I guess late 90s return and all that came with that. But from 77, 78, when Jake came in through about 1992, I don't think there was a better psychologist who wasn't a world champion than Jake Roberts. Anyway, so Roberts tries to grind things down. He doesn't actually need as much time as they give him here. He could have easily taken Jules Strongbow out quicker, but they wanted to get him over, and he manages to kind of have a very slow, methodical match with Strongbow, which suits him. Roberts can bump all over the place if he's in there with somebody who needs that, but at the same time he can work kind of slowly. There's a bow and arrow of the shoulders, and Roberts just manages to drive a knee right into the frontal chest of Strongbow, and Roberts then waits for Strongbow to get up, single punch, and then actually does something kind of cool. Roberts squares off with the referee. Strongbow, though, able to stay sufficiently on top of things, manages to fight back against Jake Roberts, which is bizarre. They take the match down again into headlock, hammerlock territory. Several chops, and Roberts goes down, but then rolls quickly out of the way, slithers like a snake to the corner, and waits for the return, and hooks the DDT, gets it done. Difference in Roberts' DDT, he always slaps the back to add extra, quote, force in, and gets a victory there. We then go to a promo with Stella Mae French addressing Gino Hernandez. She pulls up in her big rig truck. Not quite sure what the big rig truck comes from. I don't know enough about Stella Mae French to know if that's been part of her story the entire time or not. But she has a big stick, and she says that it is fortified with lead, half of it for Gino Hernandez, half of it for Andrea. Of course, Hernandez hooks her up in a full Nelson last week, so she's extra aggravated there. Then we move to Wild Bill Irwin against Mike Gallagher. I guess they felt the need to either A, fill time, or B, get Irwin over again. Irwin's a guy that I don't really quite get why they brought him back as a single if they weren't going to really do anything with him. He seems to be kind of floundering a little bit. Maybe just a guy to fill out cards. Remember, this is a time when you could have a house show with 8, 12, 16 guys maximum, 4 or 5 match card across the country, and that's where guys made good money. And now we've got shows with 50 guys on them, and and ladies too, and it's just why not make livings for let's say even 16 people, 8 match card. Actually, if you get a tag match, you can probably do 12. But anyway, point being, why not go in the direction of less guys on a card? Anyway, so drop kicks and the like by Gallagher, and holds on to the arm for a little too long. Again, Gallagher, a guy who has been treated like a enhancement talent the entire time. Not quite sure why he is able to hang with Irwin this long. Gut wrench suplex followed by a knee drop by Irwin. And amazingly, somehow Gallagher comes out the back door after the knee drop that generally would end matches for Bill Irwin in earlier incarnations. But he hits a jump pump kick, and Bill Irwin gets your victory here. Then we go to an interview, a double interview actually. First, an interview with Jake Roberts that we talked about before. He says that Jules Strongbow about to pay for other people's mistakes. Talks about being able to take out Chris Adams and underestimating Adams, but also talks about wanting to make Strongbow pay, but it's almost like this was shot before the match took place and misplaced in the program, not sure. Then Skandor Akbar talks about how Killer Khan and the Missing Link don't like to be interrupted, and so a interview in the locker room would be the proper and appropriate thing, and he thanks the announcer for doing that. Then we move to a main event or a semi-main event, where Norville Austin and Skip Young go at it. This is one of the first, not the first, but one of the first single matches of Young in the area, at least this go-round of World Class. Remember, each 5 to 7 years or so, you've got a new generation of fans. And so the generation in the 70s that had seen him before, maybe not used to Skip Young here. Young with a lot of agility, drop kicks, and the like. And
incoming team
as
chat
I
request.
hit pause for work, we'll be back in a minute. So as we move through, certainly Young is, I wouldn't necessarily say the more agile, but the more consistently highlighted in this particular match. Austin, who did most of his best work, I would say, or the predominance of his work in the Memphis style, Southern style wrestling. I think World Class might be a little different for him in that regard. And, we kind of move forward there. Young is taking the corner, beating up a good bit, and kind of, you see the cheating, you see the knees and the attempts to do everything he can do to kind of get things, I don't know that I'd say going in that way to get illegal advantages, but certainly cheating upon occasion. Then we see them go out to the floor. Austin is beaten down a good bit. Obviously, uh, we see their various partners make their way out, and Austin does hit what looks to be a pretty decisive atomic drop, which, not that the atomic drop is a finisher here in 1984, but if you think about it, it was a finish for 1978 through 83 for Backlund, so that's there. We see Austin pull his man up and hit a backbreaker, so a little bit of arrogance, cockiness in the half, in that nature, and then we see Austin go to the top rope, but Young with a roll through gets a high cross body that he catches and rolls through, gets a victory there. We move to our main event: Scott Irwin and Killer Khan versus Chris Adams and Kevin Von Erich. Seeing Gary Hart in the corner of a Von Erich just does not make sense to my brain. Does not compute. But the build of the Gary Hart and Skandor Akbar feud does compute. I get where they're going with that, but how they're getting there, a little different. Suffice to say, obviously, the Akbar Hart thing to try to blend some lines, and I mean the cool heel or the aggressive heel, whatever have you, kind of different. Kevin Von Erich in there and taking a good bit on Scott Hogg Irwin, rolls through there, hangs onto the arm, and Irwin and Von Erich, Scott Irwin and Von Erich have not done an abundance of stuff with each other. Also, the idea of Chris Adams and the Von Erichs going at it is in the back of my mind, because I've got to believe there's a turn coming, even if it's a few months or several months down the road. Anyway, we see an attempted chokeout by Killer Khan, and he's pretty flagrant about it. The referee lets some things go that maybe other referees wouldn't. Chris Adams gets handled quite a bit here and gets cast to the outside. Von Erich comes back in and tries to fight his way through. Oddly, we almost see I don't want to say non-selling, but a limited selling Killer Khan, as though he's new to the territory in this match. In that, I mean, there are things that you'd normally expect him to sell that he doesn't. Drop kick out of nowhere from Scott Irwin at a midpoint. Near fall by Von Erich, and before a block off of a Chris Adams drop kick, and so this Akbar's bunch is in a better situation than average for them in that area, and then we see a little bit more anger and borderline cheating, stamping on the throat and the like from Adams. Kevin Von Erich trying to keep things going in his direction, but then we see the attempt at a superplex, but that does not factor in. A crossbody from the top, Von Erich pinning Scott Irwin from the outside in, and amazingly, Irwin and Khan fall to the makeshift team of Chris Adams and Kevin Von Erich. Gary Hart takes a bit of punishment from Skandor Akbar, and they go at it. Those are not pretty blows, to say the very least, but that's where we close September of 1984 in World Class. We'll be back with more right after this.